Have you ever sat in a quiet room, wondering why the phone hasn't rung in weeks? Or stared at your front door a little longer than usual, hoping one of your kids might surprise you with a visit, only for the day to come and go in silence? If that sounds familiar, let me just say, you're not alone. Rejection from your own children is one of the deepest, most personal kinds of pain there is. It's not just about missed birthdays or unanswered calls. It's the ache of watching someone you raised, someone you held when they were sick or cheered on at school plays, slowly drift away or turn their back altogether. It cuts deep. And I know for many of you watching right now, this isn't just theory. It's real. It's happening. But here's the truth. You are still here. You still have value. You still have purpose. And while we may not be able to change our children's choices or the distance they've put between us, we can change how we respond to that pain. We can choose strength over bitterness, growth over regret, and peace over guilt. So today, let's talk about what to do when your kids reject you. Not just to cope, but to reclaim your dignity, your energy, and your joy. Because you deserve that. First, you need to give yourself permission to feel what you feel. So many of us were raised to bottle things up. Be strong, they told us. Don't cry. Don't show weakness. But the truth is, this isn't about weakness. It's about being human. When your child pushes you away, it's normal to feel angry, to feel sad, to feel confused, sometimes even ashamed. But don't let anyone make you feel guilty for hurting. What matters is not whether you feel pain, it's what you do with that pain. Some people let it harden them. They build up walls and say, fine, I never needed them anyway. But those walls don't protect you, or they trap you. Others let the pain define them. It becomes their whole story. I'm the parent whose children don't care, they tell themselves. But you're more than that. So much more. Instead of hiding from the pain or letting it take over, try this. Sit with it. Acknowledge it. And then, slowly, start turning it into something new. That's not easy, but it's powerful. Now, once you've started to accept your emotions, the next step is even more important. Stop blaming yourself for everything that went wrong. I know, it's easy to do. When your child stops calling, your mind goes straight to the past. Maybe I was too strict. Maybe I worked too much. Maybe I didn't listen enough. But let me ask you something. Did you do your best with what you had at the time? If you're like most parents I know, the answer is yes. You showed up. You provided. You loved. And sure, maybe you made mistakes. Who hasn't? But parenting doesn't come with a handbook, and we all grow through trial and error. Blaming yourself for everything doesn't fix the relationship. It just makes you suffer twice. Once for the rejection, and again for imagined guilt that may not even be fair. Sometimes the way our children treat us has nothing to do with what we did or didn't do. Maybe they're going through their own struggles. Maybe they're influenced by people or ideas we can't control. Maybe they've been hurt in ways that they don't know how to express. And instead of facing their pain, they direct it toward the person who's safest, you. It's not right, but it happens. That's why one of the healthiest things you can do, and this might surprise you, is to stop chasing their approval. I don't mean stop loving them. I don't mean giving up hope. I mean stop rearranging your entire emotional life around their behavior. If they don't call, it doesn't mean you're unworthy. If they don't visit, it doesn't mean you failed. Their actions are about them. Your worth, your value, your dignity. Those things come from within, not from someone else's choices. You are not a second-class person just because someone you love doesn't treat you with respect or kindness. You are not less valuable because someone else can't see your worth. Think of a diamond. Whether someone throws it in the trash or places it in a crown, it's still a diamond. Its value doesn't change based on how people treat it. And neither does yours. Now I know. Easier said than done, right? So here's something practical. Start reclaiming your time and attention. When your thoughts start spiraling, thinking about what your child said or didn't say or what they posted on Facebook, gently bring your focus back to you, your breath, your body, your life. Ask yourself, what can I do right now that nourishes me? That could be something small, stepping outside for fresh air, calling a friend who always makes you laugh, watering your plants, listening to music from your younger days that makes your heart feel alive again. These are not just distractions. They're reminders that your life is still yours to live. And while we're on that topic, let's talk about connection. Because the worst part of being rejected by your kids isn't just the silence, it's the loneliness. But here's the thing, you don't have to be alone. Yes, it hurts when family pulls away, but family can be built in other ways. Through friendships, through community, through people who choose to show up, not because they're blood, but because they care. There are people out there who need your wisdom, who would treasure your stories, who would be honored just to sit and talk with you over a cup of tea. I've seen seniors volunteer at local schools and suddenly find themselves adopted by entire classrooms of children. I've seen people form walking groups and book clubs and find a new kind of family they never expected. You have more to offer than you think, and the world needs it. You might be thinking, but I don't want to replace my kids. And of course, you don't have to. What you're doing is adding to your life, not subtracting. You're choosing connection over isolation, joy over resentment, presence over pain. Because the truth is, you are still writing your story. This chapter doesn't have to be one of bitterness or regret. It can be one of rediscovery, of new friendships, of quiet strength. It begins when you stop waiting for someone else to make you feel valued and start realizing you've had that value all along. You know, one of the most powerful shifts you can make, and it might sound simple, but it changes everything, is deciding that your life is not on hold. Not for anyone. Not even for your children. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop putting your happiness on pause, waiting for them to show up. Because the truth is, your life is still happening. Right now. Today. So if you've been sitting by the window waiting for a knock that never comes, it's time to turn away from that window and start opening some doors for yourself. That might look like going somewhere new, even if it's just a park you haven't visited before. It might be learning something that lights you up inside. I once met a woman named Ruth, 72 years old, whose son hadn't spoken to her in over 5 years. She was devastated. But one day she decided to sign up for a painting class at the community center. She'd never painted before in her life. Within 6 months, she wasn't just painting. She was selling her art at local markets, smiling again, feeling alive. And do you know what happened? Her son saw her work online, and for the first time in years, he reached out. Now, the point of that story isn't that painting will fix your family. It's that the moment Ruth stopped waiting to be chosen and started choosing herself, everything began to shift. And that's something to hold on to. When you pour life into yourself, when you invest in your own joy, growth, and healing, you radiate something that others can feel. And sometimes, yes, it draws people back. But more importantly, it brings you back to you. That's the real win. Another thing that helps, and it's something not many people talk about, is letting go of the need for closure. We often think, if only I could have one honest conversation with my son, or if only my daughter would tell me why she pulled away. But here's the hard truth. That conversation may never come. And even if it does, it might not give you the peace you're hoping for. Peace doesn't come from their explanation. It comes from your decision to move forward, even without all the answers. It's okay not to understand everything. It's okay to still have questions. But don't let those questions become chains that hold you in place. You are allowed to heal even in the middle of uncertainty. You are allowed to find peace even when things are unresolved. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means loosening your grip on what you can't control so you can hold on to the things you can. Like your health, your peace of mind, your relationships with people who do show up for you, your sense of purpose, which still matters deeply, no matter how old you are or how distant your family feels. Speaking of purpose, this is a good moment to ask yourself something. What brings me meaning now? Not what used to bring meaning 20 or 30 years ago. Not what your children used to need from you. What brings you meaning here and now? Because you are more than a parent. You are more than someone's mom or dad. Yes, that role is a part of you, and it always will be. But it is not the whole of who you are. There is still space in your life for dreams, for joy, for unexpected blessings. I know a man named Charles, 68, divorced. His only daughter hadn't spoken to him in nearly a decade. It haunted him. For years he turned inward, lost touch with old friends, stopped going to church, stopped playing music, which had once been his joy. Then one day, he found his old guitar in the attic. He started strumming again, just 10 minutes a day. It made him feel like himself again. Eventually, he began playing at senior centers, and one day, a woman came up to him after a performance and said, "You just brought back memories of my husband. He used to play that same song for me when we were young." Her eyes were full of tears. That moment didn't fix his relationship with his daughter, but it reminded him that he could still touch lives, that he still mattered, that he was still capable of bringing light into the world, even if his daughter couldn't see it. So ask yourself, what lights you up? What have you put down that you might want to pick back up again? It could be something creative, something social, something spiritual. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be you. And while we're talking about reconnecting with joy, let's not forget the importance of moving your body. I know it might not seem connected to the heartache of family rejection, but trust me, it is. Because when you sit in sadness too long, it begins to settle into your body. Your back gets stiff. Your chest feels heavy. Your energy fades. But when you take a walk, even a short one, when you stretch, when you breathe deeper than you have in days, you tell your whole system, "I'm still here. I'm still living." That's not just good for your health. It's good for your hope. Movement brings momentum, and momentum makes it easier to keep going, even on hard days. Now maybe you're watching this and thinking, "But I just want my kids back." And I get that. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. Reconnection is always possible. But here's the key. It's most likely to happen not when you beg or chase or guilt them into it, but when you become the strongest, healthiest version of yourself again. The version that's not waiting for approval, just living with quiet strength and grace. Sometimes when you stop trying to fix everything and start focusing on your own well-being, people notice. They might not say it. They might not come back right away. But your energy changes, and that shift can open doors in surprising ways. And even if it doesn't, even if the relationship never comes back, you'll still have rebuilt something much more important, yourself. You are not broken. You are not discarded. You are not forgotten. You are a person with wisdom, resilience, and heart. And you are still writing your story. There's something else we don't talk about enough, and it's the idea that sometimes distance brings clarity. When you're right in the middle of the hurt, it feels like rejection is the end of the road. But time has a way of reshaping things. People grow. They reflect. Sometimes the very space that feels so painful right now is what allows wounds, on both sides, to begin healing. You may not see the change overnight. In fact, you may never see it directly. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Quiet forgiveness, understanding, even regret, these often grow in silence. And they're not always expressed the way you might expect. A text out of the blue. A birthday card after years of nothing. A passing comment from a mutual friend. He mentioned you the other day. Said he missed the holidays you used to host. Don't underestimate the seeds you've already planted, and don't stop watering your own garden in the meantime. One of the most powerful things you can do right now is build a life so full that reconciliation becomes a bonus, not a necessity. Let it be the icing, not the whole cake. Because the moment you build a life worth living, with or without their approval, you take your power back. That means waking up in the morning and asking, what do I want this day to feel like? Not, will my son call? Or, will my daughter respond to my message? But you, in your own right. What can I do to create peace today? What can I do to laugh, to grow, to feel strong? And this is where small routines matter more than we realize. You don't need to do something grand, just consistent. Maybe it's morning tea on the porch, listening to the birds. Maybe it's writing in a journal, not about what you've lost, but about what you still have. Maybe it's calling that neighbor you've been meaning to connect with, or visiting the local senior center just to see what's going on this week. Start there. Build from there. Life opens up when you start looking outward again, beyond the empty seat at the table. Because yes, that empty seat is real, and it hurts. But don't let it blind you to all the other seats still filled with possibility. You may find with time that as you fill your days with people and activities that nourish your spirit, the sting begins to soften. And when it softens, you can look at your kids again, not with desperation, not with blame, but with calm. With love that isn't frantic or needy, just steady and open. That's when real transformation begins. Sometimes the best way to rebuild a broken bridge is to stop standing at the edge, shouting for the other person to come back, and start walking your side of the river with strength, trusting that if the time is right, they'll meet you halfway. And what if they don't? That's the question no one wants to answer, but let's be honest. Not every story ends in reunion. Some kids don't come back. Some letters don't get answered. Some phone calls never come. And that kind of grief is a slow, silent kind. The world doesn't always recognize it, but it's real. If you're carrying that kind of sadness, I want you to know, it doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But please don't carry it alone. Talk to someone. A support group, a counselor, a friend who's been through something similar. Because even though it feels like you're the only one, you're not. There are thousands of people right now sitting in homes just like yours, wondering if they did something wrong, wondering why the people they loved most in the world won't look back. And many of them are finding strength in each other, in conversation, in faith, in choosing joy even when their hearts are heavy. You can be one of those people too. You don't have to do it all at once. Just take one step, even if it's just turning off the TV a little earlier tonight, sitting in the quiet and saying to yourself, I am not defined by who calls me. I am defined by how I show up for my own life. If you've been rejected, disrespected, or forgotten by your children, I want you to hear this loud and clear. That doesn't make you unlovable. That doesn't erase the years you gave, the sacrifices you made, the birthdays you stayed up baking cakes, or the nights you sat by the window waiting for them to come home. You were a good parent. Maybe not perfect, but none of us are. You loved them the best way you knew how. That matters. And your story isn't over. Maybe this chapter is quieter than you expected. Maybe it's lonelier than you wanted. But it can still be rich. It can still be meaningful. It can still be full of growth, beauty, and new beginnings. Your life still has room for joy, for adventure, for purpose. You have more sunrises ahead, more laughter, more chances to surprise yourself, to learn something new, to connect with someone who sees you, really sees you. So if your children have stepped away, step toward yourself. Rebuild trust within. Be kind to your own heart. Forgive yourself. Be proud of your resilience. And one more thing, never be ashamed of your love, even if it's not returned the way you hoped. The ability to love deeply, even when it hurts, is a strength. It's proof that your heart is still open, still beating, still alive. So keep living, keep reaching, keep growing. And if this message speaks to you, take a moment to let us know in the comments. Share your thoughts, your story, your truth. There's a community here that hears you, sees you, and supports you. If you found even a little comfort in this video, please give it a thumbs up so others can find it too. And don't forget to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life for more conversations like this, real, honest, and from the heart. Because you are not alone. Here's to living with dignity, with strength, and with hope, no matter what. We'll see you in the next one.